that's breaking news, and I'm confused why. We talked about it on this show ad nauseum for the entirety of this year. With two guys being bad on defense, yeah, maybe you can overcome that. With three guys on the court at the same time being bad at defense, it's a non-starter. And that's what the Lakers are when you have the lineup with your best three players on the court, Austin Reaves, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic. They have a net rating of plus 1.5 in 293 minutes played. The big three for the Lakers. Now, when it's just Luka and Austin Reaves without LeBron James, plus 16.9 net rating in 329 minutes. So they are leaps and bounds a better team. And yesterday you saw how much better they can be on the defensive end. I mean, Marcus Smart was absolutely awesome. He was plus 27 in that game in 29 minutes played with only one made field goal.
Yeah.
Think about how good you got to be plus 27 in 29 minutes with only one made field goal. Marcus Smart was awesome. Rui Hachimura was awesome. He started in place of LeBron. Not only did he give you more on the defensive end, but he was able to knock down some perimeter shots when given open looks. That is the version of the Lakers that you're hoping that this team evolves into as they continue to focus on building around Luka Doncic. You see, when you put the requisite pieces in place to mask Luka's deficiencies on the defensive end, this can be a much different team, a much more competitive team in the West.
35, 8 rebounds, 4 assists for Luka. Lakers are 39 and 25. As we mentioned, 9 and 2 when Luka and Reaves are playing and LeBron is not. Let's go there for a second. Let's take the name out. Let's take the fact that he's the second greatest player ever, arguably, out of the equation. Let's take the fact that he's a one-man billion-dollar walking business. Wherever he goes, it's a multi-gazillion-dollar increase in funds around that business. So I'm doing the setup to acknowledge his greatness.
Yeah.
But if we took the name out and a basketball team had a starter where the team was significantly worse when he was starting, what would they do with that starter? They would probably not play him as much or play him off the bench, which will never in a million years happen.
No, that'll never happen.
It'll never, ever, ever happen. But the Los Angeles Lakers, your team that you root for, one of the most relevant teams in all of sports, have a very unique problem in that they're better without him than they are with him. And yet you've made the argument they're still going to want to keep him into next year because they're going to want to profit off of the retirement tour. What's going to happen here? Because you've even said without him, they kind of have the makings of, I don't want to say championship, so let's say championship-ish, but with him, not even close. What the heck are they supposed to do?
I would let him graduate from your team and go somewhere else next year.
Not even make him an offer?
No, because I can't afford to burn a year of Luka's prime. Now, if LeBron James wants to come back on a minimum salary, then that's a different conversation.
Wait, why? Why is that a different conversation when you automatically are worse with him?
Because I have more opportunities to add the pieces that I would need around Luka. That's the biggest focus as we start to get into the heart of Luka Doncic's prime. Can I get the pieces that we need? More 3-and-D types, perimeter defenders, more guys that can be reliable when it comes to rim protection because DeAndre Ayton ain't it. Like, you have to continue to build out this team similarly to how Nico Harrison tried to build it with Luka when he was in Dallas. When you had P.J. Washington, when you had Derek Lively, when you had those types of players to be able to mask what Luka is on the defensive side of the court. And if you have those guys, as we showed yesterday in the win against the Knicks, then all of a sudden you're going to get the best version of Luka Doncic, and you're going to have a chance to beat really, really good teams. Remember, that Knicks team scored 142 points the game before against the Denver Nuggets.
Destroyed Denver.
The Lakers held them to 97. I mean, that was absolutely awesome. The Knicks shot 8 of 34 from three-point land. Couldn't buy a bucket from downtown. And that's because the guys on the perimeter for the Lakers were much more aggressive defending because you didn't have to worry about having LeBron James and age 23 out there. So, I mean, I just think that when it comes to the fit with Luka, having those other players get more minutes that can be better on defense is going to give Luka more opportunities in order to take control of the game. And because you have one of the best passers in the game in Luka, he's going to find ways to get those other guys activated on the offensive end, which is what we got early on in that game. Even though Luka didn't have a great shooting night early, he was 3 of 10 in the first half, he found ways to get other guys involved. He found ways to get Austin Reaves involved. As a matter of fact, the first field goal make was a second chance opportunity when Luka finds him in the corner. And being able to throw the lob to DeAndre Ayton. Those are the types of plays that Luka can make. But if you don't have enough support on the defensive end for Luka, then all of a sudden he's going to get exposed.
So is the rest of the season on JJ Redick to minimize the amount of minutes, head coach of the Lakers, that the three of them are on the floor together?
Man, how you going to do that when LeBron James is the reason why you got the job?
3 to 4 minutes to start the game, 3 to 4 minutes to start the second half, and that's it. And just hope the game is decided before the last 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's
one way or another?
I mean, listen, it sounds good, easier said than done.
No, I understand that. It's a very weird thing. I don't know why this keeps coming.
Let's be clear. The Lakers ain't getting nowhere close to a championship this season. If the Lakers win a first-round playoff series, I'd be impressed.
But here's the wildest thing, CC. If I just said LeBron retired today, just retired today, are they getting closer to a championship than they would if he kept playing this year?
This season?
This season. Not a championship, closer to one.
That's crazy to think that, but yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, we got a pretty good sample size. I gave you the numbers.
I know. And the market, it's funny. You and I, we talk before the show. We don't talk about our takes before the show on purpose. What was my number one note? The Marcus Smart thing also.
Yeah.
When the guy is 1 of 10 from the floor and 0 of 5 from 3 and is a plus 27, which means when he's on the floor, his team outscores the other team by 27 points. You know how dominant you must be defensively?
Yeah.
And that's with Luka, who stinks defensively, who's still complaining, by the way. End of the first half, tried to do it with a smile on his face.
No,
he's
man,
still complaining.
Listen, Luka is unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable talent. I mean, the step-back three-pointer, it's ridiculous, the types of shots that he can make. But he also has moments where you pull your hair out and you wonder, will this guy ever mature? Will this guy ever get it? Because in the second half, in the third quarter, the beginning of the third quarter, first Knicks possession, he gets caught in the post with Karl Anthony Towns, bully ball, mouse in the house. Towns gets an easy bucket at the rim. Luka looks like he's about to go over to the ref and complain, and he stops himself. And in that moment, I'm like, great. This is a growing moment. After all of the criticism in the last 48, 72 hours, maybe this guy is gonna
1 T away from suspension.
Gonna try to change his stripes, to change his spots. Man, later on in the third quarter, literally minutes later, gets back on defense, fast break opportunity for the Knicks, tries to take the charge on Diawara, doesn't get the call, and on the floor gestures the money signal to the refs. What are you doing? What are you doing? You are now being accusatory of the referees in that game of being on the take. I know the NBA is going to drop the hammer with some type of discipline, maybe a fine, but being this close to a technical foul after you're antagonizing the referees, guess what? Next time there's even a borderline opportunity for them to call a tech on you, they're going to have a quick whistle.
Yeah.
And they're going to trigger an automatic 1-game suspension. I just don't understand why he puts himself and his team in that position.
Literally cannot control himself.
It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah. Flip side of it, Knicks, as great as they looked against the Nuggets, they lose against the Lakers. The Celtics have Tatum back. They go 2-0 in the Tatum games. They beat Dallas by 20. They destroy the Cavs as well. Tatum looked great in both of them for a guy that's been out for 10 months.
Tatum looked great.
Pistons have lost 4 games in a row here. This feels like the Celtics are the favorite, and the Celtics should be the favorite right now.
But here's the thing that I took away from this weekend. The Lakers are closer to winning a championship than the Knicks are.
Even though the Knicks are finals or bust.
The Lakers are closer to winning a championship than the Knicks are.
Because?
Well, because the Lakers have a solve for the problem that they're faced with when it comes to their roster construction. The Knicks ain't going to get better than what they are right now. I mean, unless they find a way to land the white whale in Giannis this summer, and I don't know why Milwaukee would even do that deal considering the assets that the Knicks are bringing to the party. It doesn't feel like this Knicks team is going to improve much on what they already are. And based on what I saw from the Celtics and what's going on in the Eastern Conference, I don't see the Knicks going to the NBA Finals this year. So, yeah, I think the Lakers are closer to winning a championship than the Knicks are. And I'm not sorry to say it, Nuno.
What if LeBron comes back on a max deal next year? You still feel that way?
That can't happen. That can't happen. It cannot happen.
Think about how bold of a statement that is without you trying to be bold. You're saying that the second greatest player, arguably in the history of the sport, cannot come back to your team next year in order for your team to win a championship.
Evan, we have the control and we have the experiment. 300 minutes played in each. With all three, LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reaves. The net rating is 15 points less than with just Austin Reaves and Luka. How are you going to argue that? How do you argue that?
I'm not. It's why I keep saying this is a pointless season for the Lakers. It's just everybody's waiting.
But you know what, though? We knew that. When you had a chance to get Luka Doncic, you got to take advantage of it, which the Lakers did last year.
No doubt.
Beautiful, beautiful decision by Rob Pelinka and that front office flipping AD. But you knew it was going to be clunky until the end for LeBron.
Yep. And we're there.
And we're there. That's where we're at.
We're there.
Austin Reaves nailing his fourth three-pointer of the night, while LeBron James sits on the bench with his elbow wrapped, watching his team dismantle the New York Knicks 110-97. And suddenly, every Lakers fan in the world is having the same thought. Are we witnessing the beginning of something special, or just another beautiful mirage in this desert of basketball chaos we call the 2025-26 season? If this breakdown resonates with your Lakers fandom journey, please hit that like button. It helps support independent Lakers analysis that isn't afraid to ask the real questions. The scoreboard doesn't lie, but it also doesn't tell the whole story. We're 39-25, sitting in 5th place in the Western Conference, and somehow managing to win games that should terrify us on paper. But before we start measuring windows for championship banners, let's dive into the beautiful madness that is Lakers basketball right now, because honestly, I'm not sure any of us really understand what we're watching. LeBron James is currently sidelined with what he's calling a funny bone situation, but super more intense, which might be the most LeBron way possible to describe an elbow injury that's serious enough to keep him out of consecutive games. I've hit my funny bone plenty of times, usually while reaching for leftover pizza at 2 a.m., but I've never missed work for 2 days because of it. When your 41-year-old franchise player describes an injury like he's explaining a playground accident to his mom, you know we've entered some truly uncharted territory. The injury happened during our loss to Denver when LeBron took a hard fall after contact with Nikola Jokic, and watching him describe the pain afterwards with that mixture of frustration and genuine discomfort, you could tell this wasn't just another rest day disguised as an injury situation. This was real, ow, that actually hurts and I'm getting older territory. The fact that the Lakers haven't committed to him playing Tuesday against Minnesota tells you everything you need to know about where we stand, which is basically in the same place we've been all season, completely uncertain about everything. But here's where it gets interesting and maybe a little heretical for Lakers fans to admit. Are we actually better without LeBron right now? Before you come for me in the comments, hear me out. When LeBron, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reaves are all on the court together, they're producing just 109.2 points per 100 possessions, which would rank 29th in the league. That's not just mediocre, that's maybe we should consider selling churros in the parking lot instead of playing professional basketball level bad. The problem isn't talent, it's basketball physics. You can't fit 3 ball-dominant players into one basketball, no matter how much we want to believe in magic. It's like trying to fit 3 drivers into one Uber. Someone's going to be uncomfortable, everyone's going to arrive late, and there will definitely be arguments about the music selection. Meanwhile, Luka Doncic is out here playing like he discovered some secret cheat code that the rest of the NBA hasn't figured out yet. His 35-point masterpiece against the Knicks, coming right after that absolutely absurd 44-point performance against Indiana, where he literally sat out the entire fourth quarter because the game was over, has been the kind of appointment television that makes you cancel dinner plans. The numbers are simply ridiculous, and I mean that in the best possible way. He's leading the league at 32.5 points per game, dishing out 8.5 assists and grabbing 7.8 rebounds while shooting 47.5% from the field and 36.2% from three. Since the All-Star break, he's been even more dominant, posting 30.9 points, 8.1 assists, 7.7 rebounds, and shooting 44.1% from three-point range. These aren't just good numbers, these are how did Dallas let this guy go numbers that make you question everything you thought you knew about basketball talent evaluation. What makes Luka special goes beyond the statistics though. Against Indiana, he scored 22 points in the first quarter alone, marking the 5th time this season he's dropped 20 or more points before most people have finished their first cup of coffee. That's not just hot shooting, that's psychological warfare. He's essentially telling opposing teams, by the time you've figured out your defensive rotation, I've already ruined your entire game plan and probably your weekend too. The technical foul situation has become its own fascinating subplot, with Luka sitting at 15 for the season and 1 away from a mandatory suspension. Part of me wonders if this is just the price of admission for a player who cares this much about winning. Would you rather have someone who occasionally gets heated with referees because he's so invested in the outcome, or would you prefer a player who just shows up, collects their paycheck, and heads home to play video games? I know which one I'd choose. JJ Redick's defense of Luka's competitive fire feels genuine rather than typical coach speak. When Redick talks about knowing Luka for 6 years and having a strong relationship, you believe it. When he discusses players not being afraid to fail emotionally, you get the sense he understands exactly what he signed up for when he took this job. This isn't some naive first-year coach who thought managing NBA personalities would be easy. This is someone who played with elite competitors and knows that passion sometimes comes with consequences. Austin Reaves dropping 25 points against the Knicks felt like watching your favorite local band finally get the recognition they deserve after years of playing small venues. This was vintage Reaves, the player we fell in love with during his breakout seasons, going 8-16 from the field, 3-6 from 3, 6-7 from the free throw line, plus 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block. More importantly, it was the first time since February 20th that he looked like the all-star caliber player we know he can be when healthy and confident. The calf injury that sidelined him for nearly a month clearly affected his rhythm more than anyone wanted to admit. Averaging 18.1 points over his last 10 games as a starter isn't spectacular by his standards, but it represents a player who's slowly remembering how to be special. The concerning part isn't his scoring. It's how his role has evolved into more of an off-ball complementary piece, rather than the primary creator we originally fell in love with. Can Reaves thrive long-term as the third option behind Luka and Lebron? Or are we wasting his potential by not building the offense around his unique skill set? These are the questions that keep Lakers fans up at night, usually around 2 a.m. when you're scrolling through trade machine scenarios and wondering if other fan bases have to deal with this level of existential basketball anxiety. The encouraging sign is that Reaves and Luka are now 9-2 this season when playing without LeBron. That's not a coincidence or lucky scheduling. That's 2 young players who complement each other perfectly when given the freedom to operate without worrying about fitting around a 41-year-old legend's preferred pace and style. Luke Kennard's impact since arriving from Atlanta represents the kind of quiet excellence that championship teams are built on. Sometimes the best moves are the ones that nobody notices until 3 months later when you realize your entire team has been transformed. Kennard has hit multiple three-pointers in 6 consecutive games, shooting an absolutely bonkers 56.7% from beyond the arc, while averaging 11.8 points in just 24.7 minutes of action. This is what happens when you add a legitimate 49.7% career three-point shooter to a team that desperately needed floor spacing. The Lakers are now second in three-point percentage over their last 13 games, which isn't just improvement, it's complete transformation of their offensive identity. When Kennard, Marcus Smart, and Jake LaRavia are on the court together, you're watching 3 former Memphis Grizzlies who understand exactly how to play winning basketball without needing the spotlight. Kennard's 15 points and 7 rebounds against Indiana came with a +126 plus-minus, which tells you he's impacting winning in ways that don't show up in traditional box scores or highlight reels. The question that haunts every Lakers fan is whether this shooting percentage is sustainable or if we're witnessing the kind of hot streak that makes general managers look like geniuses until reality inevitably sets in around playoff time. Based on his career numbers and reputation as one of the league's most reliable shooters, I'm betting this is closer to his actual level than a temporary fluke. If you want to understand everything that's both brilliantly right and hilariously wrong with the current Lakers roster, look no further than the center rotation. DeAndre Ayton, who the team acquired to be their starting center and anchor their defense, is currently sporting a 58 rating for the season. Jackson Hayes, who was supposed to be the backup option and developmental piece, is sitting pretty at +72. Meanwhile, Drew Timm, who was literally playing in the G League 2 weeks ago, just logged 23 meaningful minutes against a playoff-caliber team and looked completely comfortable doing it. Let's break this down, because it's actually hilarious when you think about it. Ayton is making $8.1 million this season with a player option for next year, which means he could potentially opt in and continue underperforming while getting paid handsomely for the privilege. Hayes is making the veteran minimum and outplaying him in virtually every meaningful statistical category while providing more energy, better rim protection, and superior chemistry with the team's core players. The Lakers could potentially save millions of dollars while getting demonstrably better production by simply starting Hayes full-time and using Ayton as an expensive backup or trade asset. JJ Redick's very confident endorsement of Hayes after the Denver game wasn't just typical coach speak, it felt like a man who's tired of watching inferior players get more opportunities simply because of their contract size and perceived upside. Hayes has averaged 11.7 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.0 assists as a starter this season, numbers that aren't spectacular but represent consistent production and positive impact. More importantly, he brings the kind of energy and effort that championship teams require from their role players. Qualities that can't be taught or bought, but can be the difference between early playoff exit and deep postseason run. The Drew Timm situation perfectly encapsulates everything the Lakers do well and everything they continue to struggle with. On the positive side, they identified a talented player who was being overlooked by other organizations and gave him an opportunity to prove himself at the highest level. On the concerning side, they're in a position where they need a G League call-up to provide meaningful minutes during the most crucial part of their playoff race. Timmy's story is compelling beyond just basketball. A player who dominated college basketball at Gonzaga, went undrafted, got waived by Milwaukee, bounced around various G League teams, and finally found a home with the Lakers organization. His 24.3 points and 8.0 rebounds for South Bay Lakers while shooting over 52% from the field show he's been dominating the developmental league, but the fact that he's needed for NBA minutes raises questions about roster construction and depth planning. The young player development situation has become a fascinating subplot that reveals the Lakers' current identity crisis in real time. Bronny James and Adu Thiero continue their back-and-forth shuttling between the NBA and G League, with Bronny recently posting impressive 21-point and 15-point performances for South Bay that show genuine improvement and growing confidence. Thiero, meanwhile, is averaging 16.0 points and 5.5 rebounds in his G League appearances while shooting an extremely efficient 62.9% from the field. These aren't just feel-good development stories or nepotism narratives, they're legitimate prospects who could potentially contribute to NBA rotations if given consistent opportunities and proper development time. But the Lakers are stuck in that awkward space between trying to maximize LeBron's remaining prime years and building for a future that might not include him, which creates impossible decisions about playing time allocation and development priorities. Dalton Knecht's situation might be the most frustrating of all the young player storylines. A former first-round pick who showed genuine flashes of brilliance and potential impact last season is now averaging just 5.4 points in 13 minutes per game, with his trade value reportedly dropping so significantly that he's no longer considered worth a first-round pick by other teams. Meanwhile, he's dropping 30 points for South Bay and showing that the talent and shooting ability are still very much present. Are the Lakers doing these young players a disservice by prioritizing veterans who might not be part of the organization next season? Or is playing time something that needs to be earned regardless of draft position, potential, and long-term upside? These questions don't have easy answers, but they're going to fundamentally define this franchise's trajectory over the next few seasons. Tuesday's game against Minnesota feels like one of those season-defining moments that we'll look back on in May, as either the beginning of something truly special or the exact moment when we knew this team wasn't quite ready for championship-level competition. Anthony Edwards is currently averaging 29.5 points per game and playing some of the most electrifying must-watch basketball in the entire league. He's made multiple three-pointers in 10 straight games and just dropped 34 points in a loss to Orlando that probably left him frustrated and motivated for exactly this kind of matchup. This represents the test that Lakers fans have been both anticipating and dreading all season long. Can we consistently beat legitimate contenders at home when the games actually matter and the stakes are real? Minnesota sits at 40-24 and holds fourth place in the Western Conference, just one game ahead of us in the standings, which means this game could fundamentally determine playoff seeding and potential matchup scenarios for the entire postseason. Edwards versus Luka, two young superstars at different stages of their development with playoff positioning on the line, broadcast on national television for the entire basketball world to evaluate and judge. This is exactly the kind of appointment television that makes the regular season feel meaningful and consequential, rather than just preparation for the real season. The concerning part of this matchup is that Minnesota just suffered a shocking 119-92 loss to Orlando, which means they're going to arrive angry, motivated, and probably embarrassed about their most recent performance. The encouraging part is that we just handled the Knicks convincingly in a wire-to-wire performance that felt like the kind of statement game we've been waiting for all season long. One of the most genuinely encouraging developments this season has been watching JJ Redick navigate the unique pressures and impossible expectations that come with coaching the Lakers franchise. His response to the viral sideline argument with Luka that dominated social media was absolutely perfect, acknowledging that it happened, explaining it as normal competitive frustration between two passionate competitors, and moving on without allowing it to become a bigger story than necessary. When Redick talks about multiple efforts being the key to beating good teams consistently, you understand that he's identified exactly what this team has been missing for most of the season. The Lakers held the Knicks to just 97 points in a comprehensive defensive performance, drawing charges, creating deflections, forcing turnovers, and making the kind of winning plays that don't show up in highlight reels, but absolutely determine championship runs and playoff success. His emphasis on framing the upcoming brutal schedule as an opportunity rather than a potential disaster shows exactly the right mindset and leadership approach. Instead of treating games against Minnesota, Denver, and Houston as likely losses to be survived, he's presenting them as chances to prove they belong in serious championship conversations. This isn't just optimistic coach speak. It's the kind of confidence that championship-level coaches project even when the roster isn't perfect and the margin for error is extremely slim. Let's be completely honest about what's coming over the next 3 weeks, because there's no point in hiding from reality. Minnesota on Tuesday, Chicago on Thursday, Denver next Friday on ABC in prime time, and Houston twice the following week. This represents the gauntlet that will ultimately determine whether we're legitimate contenders or just another playoff pretender that looks good against inferior competition. The Lakers are currently 14-19 against teams with winning records and 24-6 against losing teams, which is exactly the statistical profile of a team that's good enough to handle business against inferior competition, but struggles when the lights get bright and the competition gets serious. Sunday's convincing victory over New York was significant precisely because it represented such a rare occurrence. A comprehensive win against a legitimate playoff team that felt comfortable from start to finish. Can we fundamentally change that narrative over the next few weeks? Can we prove that the Knicks game wasn't just another false dawn, but rather a genuine preview of what this team can accomplish when everything clicks at the right time? These aren't just basketball games. They're opportunities to completely redefine what this season means and what this roster can realistically accomplish in the playoffs. While we're all focused on the day-to-day drama of wins and losses, injuries, and rotations, Rob Pelinka continues playing a much longer and more complex chess match with salary cap implications and roster construction. The Lakers will have significant financial flexibility next summer, with just $96.7 million committed to Luka, Jared Vanderbilt, Jake LaRavia, Dalton Knecht, Adu Thiero, and Austin Reaves' cap hold. The Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors refuse to go away, and for good reason beyond just wishful thinking from Lakers fans. If he becomes available through trade or free agency, the Lakers have positioned themselves to make a legitimate run at adding him without completely gutting their entire roster and future draft capital. But that financial flexibility comes at a real cost. They've avoided making long-term commitments to players like Ayton and other role players, which leaves them thin at certain positions and dependent on short-term solutions. Is this the right strategic approach for a franchise trying to maximize what might be LeBron's final season? Are they better off adding proven role players and depth pieces for immediate playoff impact? Or should they continue swinging for the fences and trying to land another legitimate superstar? The answer probably depends entirely on what LeBron James decides to do in free agency. Which brings us full circle to the fundamental uncertainty that has defined this entire season. Here's why Lakers fans should be genuinely excited about what's happening right now. Beyond just the wins and losses that dominate daily conversation, this team has developed a real identity under JJ Redick that it's been completely lacking for several years. The emphasis on defensive intensity and effort, the willingness to trust role players in big moments, the multiple efforts philosophy that prioritizes hustle and execution over talent and reputation, these are legitimately the building blocks that championship teams are constructed on.